The coffee hit her face at exactly 8:47 a.m., and in that single moment, everything Elijah Harrison had built over 30 years came crashing down around him. Mia Chen didn't scream when the scalding liquid splashed across her weathered cheeks. She didn't cry out or curse or even flinch. She just stood there on the corner of 5th and Madison in downtown Seattle, her cardboard sign trembling in her dirt-stained hands, brown droplets sliding down her face like bitter tears she'd forgotten how to shed. The cup bounced off her shoulder and clattered to the sidewalk, rolling into the gutter where it belonged. At least, that's what the man in the $1,000 suit seemed to think. "That's what you get for blocking the sidewalk, you disgusting piece of trash," Brandon Voss shouted, his voice cutting through the morning rush like a knife. His face was red, twisted with a rage that seemed too big for such a small inconvenience. "Get a real job. Stop begging like some kind of animal." But here's what Brandon didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know as he stood there, chest puffed up with self-righteous anger. Just 15 feet away, sitting in the back of a blacked-out town car, Elijah Harrison was watching everything. And Elijah Harrison wasn't just anyone. He was the founder and CEO of Harrison Industries, a tech empire worth $8.3 billion. He'd been on his way to the most important board meeting of his career. But now he couldn't look away. Before we continue with what happened next, and trust me, you won't believe where this goes, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Tap the like button and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, because what you're about to witness is something that needs to be shared everywhere. This story will restore your faith in humanity. Now, let's get back to that sidewalk in Seattle. Mia slowly wiped the coffee from her face with the sleeve of her tattered jacket. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something deeper, something broken. She'd been standing on this corner for 3 months, ever since the hospital bills had swallowed her savings and the landlord had changed the locks. 62 years old, former elementary school teacher, now invisible to everyone who rushed past with their expensive phones and their important meetings. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to." "Sorry?" Brandon laughed, a harsh sound that made several pedestrians slow down to watch. "You're sorry. You people are always sorry. Sorry you're lazy. Sorry you made bad choices. Sorry you're too stupid to figure out how to survive in the real world." He stepped closer, looming over her small frame. Mia was maybe 5'3", thin in the way that comes from missing too many meals. Brandon was easily 6 feet tall, built like someone who spent his lunch breaks at an expensive gym. The power imbalance was suffocating. "You know what your problem is," Brandon continued, his voice dripping with contempt. He'd attracted a small crowd now, some people filming on their phones, others looking away in discomfort but no one stepping in. "You want everyone else to solve your problems. Well, guess what? Nobody owes you anything. Not me, not them, not anyone." Inside the town car, Elijah's jaw tightened. His driver, Thomas, glanced in the rearview mirror, reading his boss's expression after 15 years of working together. "Sir, we really should." "Wait," Elijah said quietly. His eyes never left Mia's face. There was something about her, something in the way she held herself despite the humiliation, a dignity that couldn't be stolen, even by someone like Brandon Voss. Elijah pulled out his phone and opened Instagram. Found Brandon's profile in seconds. People like him always made sure they were easy to find. Brandon Voss, senior account manager at Whitmore Financial. His feed was exactly what Elijah expected. Gym selfies, luxury car photos, motivational quotes about grinding and winning. The bio read, "Self-made, no handouts, no excuses." Self-made. Elijah almost laughed. He looked up from his phone just in time to see Brandon grab Mia's cardboard sign and rip it in half. "Anything helps. God bless," Brandon read mockingly, tearing the cardboard into smaller pieces and letting them flutter to the ground. "You know what would help? Getting off your lazy butt and filling out a job application instead of guilt-tripping hardworking people." A woman in the crowd finally spoke up. "Hey, that's enough, man. Leave her alone." Brandon whirled on her. "Oh, here we go. Another bleeding heart who probably doesn't give these people anything either. You know what? I work 70 hours a week. I earned everything I have. I don't have to feel guilty because some people refuse to help themselves." The woman backed down, intimidated. The crowd shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. And Mia just stood there, staring at the torn pieces of her sign scattered across the concrete. Her eyes were dry. Maybe she'd run out of tears. Maybe she'd learned that crying changed nothing. Elijah had seen enough. He opened the car door and stepped out into the crisp Seattle morning. Thomas called after him, "Mr. Harrison, the meeting." But Elijah was already moving, cutting through the crowd with the kind of quiet authority that made people instinctively step aside. Brandon didn't notice him at first. He was too busy enjoying his moment, too focused on the little hit of power that came from punching down, but the crowd noticed. Heads turned. Whispers spread. Because in Seattle's tech community, Elijah Harrison was immediately recognizable. His face had been on the cover of Forbes 3 times. He'd given a TED Talk that had 50 million views. But more than that, there was something about the way he carried himself. Calm, focused, like a man who'd learned long ago that real power doesn't need to shout. "Excuse me," Elijah said, his voice cutting through Brandon's rant. Brandon spun around, irritation flashing across his face until he registered who was standing before him. Then his expression changed, confusion, then recognition, then something close to panic as his brain caught up with his eyes. "Mr. Harrison," Brandon stammered, the color drained from his face. I didn't. What are you?" Elijah ignored him. He walked past Brandon and knelt down on the dirty sidewalk beside Mia, his expensive suit touching the grime-covered concrete without hesitation. He began picking up the torn pieces of her sign, gently gathering them like they were something precious. "Ma'am," he said softly, looking up at Mia, "I'm so sorry this happened to you. No one deserves to be treated this way." Mia's eyes widened. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked at this stranger in his perfectly tailored suit, kneeling in the dirt beside her, and something inside her chest cracked open. She whispered. "It's okay," Elijah said gently. He stood up, still holding the torn cardboard. Then he turned to face Brandon, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brandon's mouth worked like a fish out of water. "Mr. Harrison, I can explain. She was blocking the—" "What's your name?" Elijah asked. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath it now. "Brandon Voss, sir. I'm a senior account manager at—" "Whitmore Financial." Elijah nodded. "I know. They manage about $40 million of Harrison Industries' investment portfolio." He paused, letting that sink in. "Or rather, they did until about 30 seconds ago." Brandon's face went from pale to gray. "Sir, please, Do you know what I was doing before I got out of this car?" Elijah asked, his voice conversational now, almost friendly. "I was on my way to a board meeting where we're deciding which Seattle firms get to bid on a $200 million project. Whitmore was on the short list, past tense." The crowd had grown. Phones were out everywhere now, capturing every word. This was the kind of moment that would be trending worldwide within the hour. Brandon seemed to realize this, his eyes darting to the cameras, panic setting in. "Mr. Harrison, please, I made a mistake. I was having a bad morning and I just—" "You threw hot coffee in this woman's face," Elijah said flatly. "You destroyed her property. You called her disgusting. You told her she was lazy and stupid. And you did all of this because you have power and she doesn't, because you thought there would be no consequences." Brandon's hands were shaking now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. This isn't who I am." "Isn't it?" Elijah tilted his head. "Your Instagram feed suggests otherwise. You post about winners and losers, about people who deserve success and people who don't. You've built your entire identity around the idea that you're better than people like her. So forgive me if I think this is exactly who you are." A woman in the crowd shouted, "Make him apologize to her." Brandon immediately turned to Mia, desperation in his eyes. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I was completely out of line. Please, I—" "Stop," Elijah said sharply. "Don't apologize because I'm standing here. Don't apologize because you're scared of losing your job. Those aren't real apologies. Those are just fear dressed up as remorse." He turned to Mia, who was standing frozen, overwhelmed by everything happening around her. "Ma'am, what's your name?" Mia," she whispered. "Mia Chen." "Mia," Elijah repeated gently. "Would you mind telling me how you ended up on this corner? You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'd like to hear your story." Mia's eyes filled with tears, real ones this time. No one had asked her that question in months. No one had looked at her like she was a person with a story worth hearing. "I was a teacher," she said quietly. "Second grade, Riverside Elementary, for 37 years. I loved those kids. Loved watching them learn to read, helping them figure out math problems, making sure they knew someone cared about them." Her voice cracked. The crowd had gone completely silent. "3 years ago, my husband died, cancer. The bills were. They were so much, more than I ever imagined. I had some savings, but it wasn't enough. I tried to keep working, but I was so sad all the time, and the school needed someone who could really be there for the kids. So I retired early. Thought I'd be okay with my pension." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Then I got sick too. Nothing like cancer, just complications. Diabetes, heart problems. The medications cost so much. My pension wasn't enough to cover everything. I had to choose between pills and rent. And then I couldn't make that choice anymore because there wasn't enough money for either one." "When did you lose your apartment?" Elijah asked gently. 3 months ago. I stayed with a friend for a while, but I couldn't burden her forever. So I came here to this corner because I didn't know what else to do." Brandon had tears streaming down his face now, but Elijah still didn't look at him. He kept his eyes on Mia. "How much do you need?" Elijah asked. "For first and last month's rent, for your medications, to get back on your feet." Mia shook her head. "I couldn't. I don't want charity, I just want—" "You want your dignity back," Elijah said softly. "You want to be seen as a person again, not as a problem or a moral test for people walking past. You want someone to recognize that you spent nearly 4 decades shaping young minds, and that matters, that you deserve better than this corner." Mia broke down completely. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside her, years of holding everything together finally cracking open. A woman from the crowd stepped forward and put her arm around Mia's shoulders, steadying her. "If you're still watching this story, I need you to do something right now. This isn't just entertainment. This is real life for millions of people around the world. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in kindness. Smash that like button if this story is touching your heart. And comment below telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever helped someone in need. Your engagement helps this message spread to people who need to hear it. Now, let's see what Elijah does next." Elijah pulled out his phone. "Thomas, I need you to call Sarah at the foundation. Tell her I need emergency housing assistance for Ms. Mia Chen. Private apartment, fully furnished, utilities covered for 1 year. Also need a full medical assessment and medication coverage. And tell her I want this done today." He paused, thinking. "Also, contact Dr. Patel at Seattle General. I want Ms. Chen set up with a primary care physician and any specialists she needs. Full comprehensive care. And Thomas, see if we have any openings in our literacy program. I think we could use someone with 37 years of teaching experience to help design curriculum." The crowd erupted. People were crying, cheering, filming everything. This was the moment, the one that would be shared millions of times, that would restore people's faith that kindness still existed in the world. But Elijah wasn't done. He finally turned to Brandon, who looked like he wanted the sidewalk to open up and swallow him whole. "Here's what's going to happen," Elijah said quietly. "You're going to take out your phone and you're going to transfer $5,000 to whatever organization Ms. Chen chooses to support homeless services in Seattle. Then you're going to volunteer at that organization every Saturday for the next year. Not for Instagram, not for your resume. You're going to show up and do whatever they need, serve food, clean bathrooms, sort donations, and you're going to do it silently and humbly." "Yes, sir," Brandon whispered, "anything." "I'm not finished," Elijah continued. "You're also going to attend counseling, because the way you treated Ms. Chen today tells me you have some serious work to do on understanding empathy and human dignity. And if I hear, through any source, that you've treated anyone like this again, I won't just tank your company's relationship with mine. I'll make it my personal mission to ensure every major firm in Seattle knows exactly who you are." Brandon nodded, unable to speak. "Now apologize to Ms. Chen," Elijah said. "A real apology, not because I'm here, but because you need to look her in the eye and acknowledge what you did." Brandon turned to Mia. His face was blotchy with tears, his expensive suit rumpled. He looked nothing like the confident bully from 10 minutes ago. "Ms. Chen," he said, his voice breaking, "I am so deeply sorry. I was cruel and heartless, and nothing I said to you was true. You didn't deserve any of that. I don't have an excuse. I was taking out my own insecurities and anger on someone who couldn't fight back, and that makes me a coward. I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." Mia looked at him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she nodded. "I forgive you," she said quietly. "I hope you become a better person." The grace in that moment, the fact that this woman who had been so thoroughly humiliated could still find forgiveness, broke something open in the crowd. More tears, more whispers. This was more than viral content. This was witnessing something sacred. Elijah pulled out his wallet and handed Mia a business card. "Ms. Chen, my assistant's number is on here. She'll be calling you within the hour to arrange everything we discussed. If you need anything, anything at all, you call that number. Do you understand?" Mia took the card with trembling hands. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Elijah was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft enough that only Mia and the people closest could hear. "Because 30 years ago I was sleeping in my car," he said. "I'd lost everything in a failed startup. My wife had left me. My friends had disappeared. I was standing outside a grocery store with a sign just like you, trying to get enough money to eat. And a woman, her name was Dorothy, stopped and talked to me. Really talked to me. Asked me my story. Gave me $50 and told me it wasn't charity, it was an investment. She said she could see something in me that I couldn't see in myself anymore." His eyes were distant, remembering. "That $50 bought me a gym membership so I could shower and stay presentable for job interviews. Dorothy helped me put together a resume, introduced me to someone who gave me a chance. 30 years later, I'm standing here with more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. And I think about Dorothy every single day. I think about what would have happened if she'd walked past me like everyone else did." He focused back on Mia. "You're not a charity case, Ms. Chen. You're an investment. And I have a feeling you're going to prove that in ways neither of us can imagine right now." Mia couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. Elijah turned to address the crowd, his voice carrying that natural authority again. "Every single person here has a phone out recording this. That's fine. Share it everywhere. But when you do, I want you to include something. I want you to tell people that there are thousands of Mias in every city in America. People who worked hard their entire lives and ended up on the street because of circumstances beyond their control. And I want you to challenge everyone watching to do something about it." He pulled out his phone one more time. "I'm about to post on my social media accounts that Harrison Industries will match, dollar for dollar, any donation made to Seattle's homeless services organizations in the next 72 hours, up to $10 million. Let's see if we can hit that number." The crowd erupted again. Phones were flying as people rushed to post, to share, to be part of something bigger than themselves. Wait, before we continue, I need to know you're really paying attention to this powerful message. If this story is making you feel something deep in your heart, if you believe compassion should go viral, then prove it. Hit that subscribe button right now. Double tap that like button and drop a comment telling me, have you ever judged someone without knowing their story? This is the moment to reflect and commit to being better. Comment below and let's create a movement of kindness together. Now let's see what happens next. Thomas had pulled the car up to the curb. Mr. Harrison, if we leave now, you'll only be 15 minutes late for the board meeting. Elijah looked at his watch, then at Mia, then back at Thomas. Cancel it, he said. Reschedule for next week. Tell them something important came up. Sir, this meeting has been scheduled for 3 months. The board members are flying in from. I know, Elijah said calmly, and they'll understand, because right now I'm going to take Ms. Chen to breakfast. Then I'm going to personally make sure she gets set up in her new apartment and has everything she needs. The board meeting can wait. This can't. He offered his arm to Mia. She stared at it like it was something from another world, then slowly, carefully, placed her hand in the crook of his elbow. There's a good diner 2 blocks from here, Elijah said. They make excellent pancakes, my treat, and I want to hear more about your teaching career. I'm serious about that position with the literacy program. We need people who actually care about kids, not just people with fancy degrees. As they started to walk away, Brandon called out, Mr. Harrison. Elijah turned back. Thank you, Brandon said, and this time his voice held genuine emotion. For not letting me get away with being that person. I needed this. I needed to see what you could become if you're not careful, Elijah finished. We're all one bad choice away from becoming someone we don't recognize, Brandon. The question is whether we have people in our lives willing to hold up a mirror. Consider this your wake-up call. The crowd parted as Elijah and Mia walked through, dozens of cameras still recording. By the time they reached the diner, the video had already been posted by multiple people. Within an hour, it had 1 million views. Within 3 hours, 10 million. By the end of the day, it was trending worldwide. But in that diner, eating pancakes across from Elijah Harrison, Mia Chen wasn't thinking about going viral. She was thinking about the fact that someone had seen her, really seen her, for the first time in months. Someone had recognized that she was more than her circumstances, that her story mattered, that her dignity couldn't be stolen by cruelty or poverty or time. I taught 2nd grade, she said again, this time with pride in her voice instead of sadness, and I was good at it. I believe you, Elijah said, smiling, and I think you're going to teach again in one way or another, because people who care about kids the way you do, that's not something that goes away just because circumstances change. The waitress came by with more coffee, regular coffee this time, served with kindness. Mia wrapped her hands around the warm cup and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real, tangible hope that tomorrow might be different. That the corner on 5th and Madison wasn't the end of her story but just a difficult chapter. Tell me about your favorite student, Elijah said, taking a bite of his pancakes. In all those years of teaching, there must have been one kid who really stuck with you. Mia's face lit up. Oh, there were so many, but there was this one little boy, Devin. He came to my class barely able to write his own name. His home life was complicated. His mom worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. No one had time to read with him or help with homework. She smiled at the memory. He was so frustrated at first, thought he was stupid because the other kids could read and he couldn't, but I stayed with him after school 3 days a week. We worked through book after book slowly, patiently. And one day, I'll never forget it, he read an entire page without help. His face just glowed. He looked up at me and said, Ms. Chen, I can do it. I can really do it. What happened to him? Elijah asked. He graduated high school with honors, got a scholarship to college. Last I heard, he was studying to be a teacher himself. Mia's eyes shimmered with tears again, but happy ones this time. He sent me a letter his freshman year, said I changed his life. But really, kids like Devin changed mine. They reminded me why the work mattered. Elijah nodded slowly. That's exactly the kind of experience we need in our literacy program. We have funding, we have facilities, but what we really need are people who understand that teaching isn't just about information. It's about seeing potential in someone before they can see it in themselves. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message. I'm connecting you with Jasmine Rivera. She runs our community education initiatives. I'm telling her to expect your call and to work around your schedule. No pressure. You take the time you need to get settled. But when you're ready, there's a place for you. Mia set down her coffee cup, her hand steadier now. Mr. Harrison. Elijah, he corrected gently. Elijah, she repeated. I don't know how to thank you. I don't have words for what you've done. Then don't thank me, Elijah said. Just pay it forward when you can. That's how Dorothy asked me to thank her, and it's the only payment I'll accept from you. Someday, when you're back on your feet, you'll meet someone who needs what you needed today. And you'll remember this moment and you'll help them. That's how we change the world, one person, one moment of kindness at a time. You know what's crazy? This moment right here, this conversation over pancakes, this is the part that matters most. Not the viral video, not the millions of views, but the human connection, the seeing and being seen. If you understand that, if you feel that in your soul, then I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button so hard your finger hurts. And comment below with one person you're going to reach out to today, someone who might be invisible, someone who might need to be seen. Write their name or their situation. Make a commitment. Let's turn this story into action. Now, let's see how Mia's new life unfolds. They finished breakfast and Elijah drove Mia to her new apartment himself. Thomas followed in the town car, but Elijah insisted on taking his personal vehicle, a modest sedan that surprised Mia. You thought I'd drive something flashier? Elijah asked with a slight smile. Maybe, Mia admitted. You're a billionaire, I thought there'd be, I don't know, more show to it. I did that for a while, Elijah said, navigating through Seattle traffic. Bought the sports cars, the mansion, all of it. Thought that's what success looked like. But you know what I learned? The stuff doesn't make you happy. It's the connections, the purpose. Knowing that what you do matters to someone beyond yourself. He glanced over at her. That corner where I found you this morning. I drive past it every day on my way to the office. I've driven past it for 3 years. And I'm ashamed to say I never stopped before today. I saw people there, but I didn't really see them. I told myself I was too busy, that I donated to charities, and that was enough. But it's not the same as stopping, as asking someone their name, as treating them like a person instead of a problem. What made today different? Mia asked quietly. Elijah was silent for a moment. Honestly, I saw him throw that coffee and something in me just snapped. Maybe it was because I remembered being on the other side of that contempt. Maybe it was because I've been thinking about Dorothy a lot lately. She passed away last year, and I never got to properly thank her. Or maybe it was just that I was finally ready to stop driving past and actually do something. He pulled up in front of a clean, modest apartment building in a quiet neighborhood. This is it. It's not fancy, but it's safe and comfortable. 1 bedroom, fully furnished. The foundation owns the building, so you'll never have to worry about a landlord. Your name is on the lease for 1 year, and after that, we'll see where you are and what you need. Mia stared up at the building, unable to move. I have a home, she whispered. I have a real home. They went inside and Elijah showed her around. The apartment was small but perfect. A cozy living room with a comfortable couch, a bedroom with a real bed and clean sheets, a kitchen stocked with groceries, a bathroom with fluffy towels and toiletries. On the counter sat a welcome basket with a note from the Harrison Foundation staff and a phone, a smartphone, fully set up and ready to use. This has my number programmed in, Elijah explained. along with Jasmine's number, the Foundation's emergency line, and contacts for local services you might need. There's also a tablet in the bedroom with access to online resources, books, whatever you want. Mia walked through each room, touching things gently like she was afraid they might disappear. When she came back to the living room, she was crying again. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her eyes. "I've cried more today than I have in years. I don't know how to process all of this." "You don't have to apologize for feeling things," Elijah said gently. "Today has been overwhelming, I'm sure. Why don't you take some time to settle in? There's food in the fridge, the TV works, the Wi-Fi password is on the counter. Rest. Process. Tomorrow, someone from the foundation will come by to take you to your medical appointments. We'll get your medication sorted out and make sure you're healthy." He headed toward the door, then paused. "Mia, one more thing. In the closet you'll find some clothes, nothing fancy, just basics. And there's a gift card to a few stores in case you want to pick out things yourself. I hope that's okay." "It's more than okay," Mia said, her voice thick with emotion. "It's everything." After Elijah left, Mia stood in the middle of her new living room for a long time, just breathing. She walked to the window and looked out at the tree-lined street, at normal people living normal lives. She was one of them again. She had an address, a door she could lock, a bed that was hers. She took a long, hot shower, the first one in months, and put on clean clothes from the closet. They fit perfectly. She made herself a cup of tea in her own kitchen and sat on her own couch and turned on her own TV. And then she let herself cry deep, heaving sobs that came from the very bottom of her soul. But these weren't tears of despair. They were tears of release, of gratitude, of coming home to herself. Meanwhile, across Seattle, the internet was exploding. The video had been viewed 50 million times. Comments were pouring in from around the world. People were sharing their own stories of homelessness, of helping someone in need, of being helped when they'd lost hope. Donations were flooding into Seattle's homeless services faster than anyone could process them. But there was something else happening too. Other videos were being posted, videos of people going back to corners they'd driven past for years, stopping to talk to people they'd always ignored, asking names and hearing stories. A movement was building, sparked by one moment of kindness captured on camera. Brandon Voss's video was going viral for different reasons. Someone had screen-recorded his Instagram profile before he deleted it, and now his self-made, no excuses posts were being compared to his cruel treatment of Mia. He was being identified, called out, held accountable. His employer had issued a statement placing him on unpaid leave pending an investigation. His phone was blowing up with messages from people he hadn't heard from in years, some supportive, most angry. But Brandon wasn't looking at his phone. He was sitting in his apartment, still in his coffee-stained suit, staring at nothing. He kept replaying the moment, seeing himself through Elijah Harrison's eyes, seeing himself through the crowd's eyes, seeing the person he'd become and feeling sick about it. He pulled up his banking app with shaking hands and made a $5,000 transfer to Mary's Place, a homeless services organization in Seattle. It was money he'd been saving for a new car. The transfer went through, and he felt nothing. No pride, no sense of redemption. Just shame that it had taken public humiliation to make him do what he should have done from a place of basic human decency. He opened his phone's notepad and started writing, not for social media, not for anyone but himself. He wrote about his father, who'd been laid off when Brandon was 12 and had spiraled into depression. He wrote about the shame he'd felt being the kid whose dad couldn't find work, whose family needed help from the church food bank. He wrote about the vow he'd made to never be like his father, to never be weak, to never need help from anyone. And he wrote about how that vow had twisted into something ugly, how his fear of weakness had turned into contempt for anyone he perceived as weak, how his determination to never need help had made him cruel to people who did. It was the most honest he'd been with himself in years. Listen, I need to pause here because this is important. This story isn't just about Elijah being a hero or Brandon being a villain. It's about all of us. about the ways we justify walking past people who need help, about the walls we build to protect ourselves that end up cutting us off from our own humanity. If this is hitting home for you, if you're seeing yourself in any of these characters, then I need you to engage. Subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and comment honestly. Tell me about a time you walked past someone who needed help, or a time someone walked past you. Let's be real with each other. Vulnerability is how we change. Now, let's see what happens 1 week later. 1 week later, Mia stood in front of her bathroom mirror, hardly recognizing herself. Her hair was clean and trimmed. Her skin, no longer weathered by constant exposure, was starting to look healthier. But more than the physical changes, there was something in her eyes, a spark that had been missing for months. She looked like someone who had a future again. Her medical appointments had gone well. Her diabetes and heart condition were being managed with proper medication. The doctors said that with consistent care, she could expect to feel significantly better in the coming months. She had follow-up appointments scheduled, all covered, all arranged. Today was her first meeting with Jasmine Rivera about the literacy program. Mia was nervous in a way she hadn't been in years, not the desperate nervousness of wondering where she'd sleep or eat, but the excited nervousness of someone about to start something meaningful. The Harrison Foundation offices were beautiful, modern and clean, but warm somehow, not cold and corporate. There were pictures on the walls of people the foundation had helped, their stories written in their own words beneath their smiling faces. Jasmine met her in the lobby, a warm woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Mia, it's so wonderful to meet you. Elijah has told me so much about your teaching background. Come on back, let's talk." They settled in Jasmine's office with coffee, good coffee, served with kindness. "So here's what we're thinking," Jasmine said, pulling up a presentation on her computer. "We run literacy programs for adults who never learned to read properly, or who learned English as a second language and want to improve. We also have after-school tutoring for kids from low-income families. Right now, our curriculum is fine, but it's not great. It was designed by education theorists who have never actually taught a struggling reader." She turned the screen so Mia could see better. "What we need is someone who understands how to reach people who have been failed by traditional education. Someone patient. Someone who sees potential instead of deficits. Elijah said you spent 37 years doing exactly that." Mia leaned forward, studying the materials. Her teacher brain, dormant for months, suddenly clicked back on. "Can I make a suggestion?" "Please," Jasmine said. "This section here on phonics, it's too abstract. Struggling readers need concrete examples, multi-sensory approaches. You need to involve touch, movement, not just visual processing." Mia's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "And this assessment tool, it's going to make adult learners feel like they're being tested, which will trigger all their old school anxieties. You need to make it feel like a conversation, not an exam." Jasmine was grinning. "This is exactly what I mean. This is the expertise we're missing. Mia, how would you feel about not just consulting on curriculum but actually teaching? We have evening classes 3 nights a week. The pay isn't huge, but it's steady, and the work is, well, it's important." Mia felt tears threatening again, happy tears that came too easily these days. "I would love that. I would absolutely love that." "There's one catch," Jasmine said. "Well, not a catch exactly, but Elijah specifically requested that you also spend some time mentoring our younger teachers, sharing what you've learned over your career. Would you be comfortable with that?" Mentoring, Mia repeated the word, feeling foreign. A week ago, she'd been invisible on a street corner. Now someone wanted to learn from her. "You have knowledge that matters," Jasmine said gently. "Experience that can't be taught in universities. And honestly, some of our newer teachers get discouraged when students struggle. They need to see someone who's been doing this for decades, who still believes every student can learn. They need your perspective." Mia nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Then, "When do I start?" How about next Monday? That gives you another week to settle in, and it's the start of a new session. They spent the next hour going over logistics, paperwork, the curriculum in detail. Mia found herself offering suggestion after suggestion, her mind fully engaged for the first time in months. She'd forgotten how much she loved this, the puzzle of figuring out how to reach someone, how to make a concept click, how to build confidence alongside competence. As she was leaving, Jasmine walked her to the elevator. Mia, can I tell you something? We've been flooded with applications since your story went viral. People wanting to volunteer, donate, get involved. But more than that, we've had dozens of people reach out asking for help. People who have been homeless or struggling but were too ashamed to ask before. Your story gave them permission to be seen. Mia pressed her hand to her chest. I didn't do anything. Elijah did everything. No, Jasmine said firmly. Elijah created an opportunity, but you showed people that homelessness doesn't mean worthless. That struggle doesn't define someone. That dignity isn't something that can be taken away, only forgotten. Your grace in that moment, the way you forgave Brandon, the way you held on to yourself despite everything, that's what people are responding to. The elevator arrived and Mia stepped in. As the doors started to close, Jasmine added, "Oh, and Mia, welcome to the team. We're lucky to have you." Mia rode the elevator down with her hand still pressed to her chest, feeling her heart beat strong and steady. She had a job, she had a purpose, she had a future. 3 weeks ago, she'd been standing on a corner wondering if she'd survive the winter. Now she was going home, to her own apartment, to prepare for her first day as a teacher again. That evening, Brandon Voss showed up for his first volunteer shift at Mary's place. He'd been dreading this moment all week, expecting hostility, judgment, recognition from the viral video. But when he walked in, the volunteer coordinator, a woman named Patricia, just handed him an apron and a smile. "First time volunteering?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Brandon said quietly. "Great, tonight you're on dinner service. We're expecting about 200 people. Your job is to serve food, make eye contact, treat everyone with dignity. Think you can handle that?" "I'll try," Brandon said. Patricia studied him for a moment. "You're the guy from the video, aren't you?" Brandon's stomach dropped. "Yes." "Thought so?" She didn't say it unkindly. "Well, here's the thing about this place. We don't believe in throwing people away because they made mistakes. Everyone here, staff, volunteers, the people we serve, we're all just humans trying to do better. You show up, you do the work, you keep your mouth shut and your heart open, and you'll learn something. Deal?" "Deal," Brandon whispered. The shift was hard. Not physically, though his feet hurt by the end, but emotionally. He looked into the eyes of person after person coming through the line, old, young, families, veterans, people who looked like they could be his neighbors, and felt the weight of his own prejudice pressing down on him. A woman who looked like she could be Mia's age smiled at him and said, "Thank you, sweetheart." An older man with kind eyes asked how Brandon's day had been. A young mother with 2 small kids apologized for her children's excitement about the food. Every interaction chipped away at the walls he'd built. During his break, he sat in the volunteer area, and one of the regular volunteers, a man named James who'd been volunteering for 15 years, sat down beside him. "First time is always the hardest," James said. "You start realizing they're just people. Just like you, just like me, just dealt a worse hand or made a mistake at the wrong time." "Were you ever?" Brandon couldn't finish the question. "Homeless?" James finished. "Yeah, 10 years ago. Lost my job, lost my apartment, spent 8 months living in my car and in shelters. Then I got back on my feet and I decided I needed to give back. Been here every week since." Brandon looked at James, well-dressed, articulate, clearly successful now. "I never would have guessed." "That's the point," James said gently. "You can't tell by looking at someone, can't tell what they've survived, what they've overcome, what they're capable of. That's why judgment is such a dangerous thing. It lets us write people off before we know their story. When Brandon's shift ended, Patricia stopped him at the door. "You did good tonight. You'll get better as you go. See you next Saturday." "Yes, ma'am," Brandon said, and he meant it. Walking to his car, Brandon pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app. He'd been writing in it every day, not for social media, just for himself, processing, reflecting. Tonight he wrote, "I think I'm starting to understand. It's not about the money I donated or the hours I'm logging. It's about letting my heart break open enough to actually see people, really see them, the way I didn't see Ms. Chen, the way I haven't been seeing people for years." Across town, Elijah Harrison was having dinner with his executive team when his phone buzzed with a news alert. The matching donation campaign had closed. Final tally: $10 million from donors around the world, matched by Harrison Industries for a total of $20 million going to homeless services in Seattle. But more than the money, the campaign had sparked something bigger. Similar campaigns had launched in 30 other cities. Volunteers were signing up in record numbers. Homeless services organizations that had been struggling for funding were suddenly overwhelmed with support. "You started a movement," his CFO said, reading her own phone. "There are copycat videos from a dozen different cities, CEOs and business owners randomly helping people. Some are clearly doing it for publicity, but some seem genuine." "Good," Elijah said. "Even if half of them are doing it for the wrong reasons, that's still lives being changed. And maybe some of the ones doing it for publicity will actually learn something in the process." His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Mia. "First day tomorrow. I'm nervous and excited and grateful. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." Elijah typed back, "You were never invisible, Mia. I just wasn't looking hard enough. Good luck tomorrow. You're going to be amazing." He set his phone down and looked around the table at his team. "I want to talk about something. We're a tech company, we make good products, we turn a profit. But I've been thinking a lot lately about legacy, about what we're building beyond quarterly earnings and stock prices." His team exchanged glances. "I want to expand the foundation," Elijah continued. "Not just in Seattle, but nationally. I want to create a pipeline from homelessness to employment, with housing, healthcare, job training, and placement services. I want us to be the model for how corporations can actually solve social problems instead of just writing checks and feeling good about it." "That's going to be expensive," his CFO said carefully. "I know, but we can afford it, and more importantly, we can't afford not to. There are talented people sleeping on streets tonight because the system failed them. Teachers like Mia, veterans, skilled workers, people who just need one break, one person to believe in them. We have the resources to provide that break, so why wouldn't we?" His team was nodding now, energy building in the room. This was why they'd all chosen to work for Harrison Industries, not just for the salary or the prestige, but because Elijah had always believed business should be a force for good. "Let's build something that matters," Elijah said. "Let's make Dorothy proud." "We're almost at the end of this incredible journey, but before we get there, I need something from you. This story, Mia's story, Elijah's story, even Brandon's story, it matters. But it only matters if we let it change how we see the world. So here's my challenge. Subscribe to this channel if you believe in second chances. Hit that like button if you believe in the power of kindness. And in the comments, I want you to make a public commitment. Tell me one thing you're going to do differently after watching this. One person you're going to see. One corner you're not going to drive past anymore. Make it real. Make it count. Now, let's wrap this up. 6 months later, Mia Chen stood at the front of a classroom filled with adult learners, holding up a book. "Who can tell me what this word is?" she asked, pointing. A woman in the back row, someone who'd been coming to class for 2 months, slowly sounded it out. "OPP or Tanaitai, opportunity." "Beautiful," Mia beamed. "And what does it mean?" "It means a chance," the woman said, her voice growing stronger. "A chance to do something, a chance to be something." "Exactly," Mia said. And that's what we're doing here. We're creating opportunities, not just to read words, but to read the world, to fill out job applications, to help your kids with homework, to read the stories you've always wanted to read. Every word you learn is an opportunity opening up. After class, one of her students, a man in his 50s who'd been illiterate his whole life, hung back. "Ms. Chen, I got the job, the warehouse position. They gave me the reading test and I passed it. Because of you." Mia felt the familiar prick of tears. "Because of you," she corrected. "You did the work. You showed up every single week. You believed you could learn. I just helped guide you." "Still," he said, "thank you. You changed my life." "You're welcome," Mia said softly. "Now go change someone else's. That's how this works." She locked up the classroom and headed out to her car, a used sedan she'd bought with her first 3 paychecks. She had a car now, an apartment, a job, health insurance, friends, a life. She'd reconnected with former students on social media, cried happy tears over their success stories. She'd started volunteering at the shelter where Brandon worked, teaching a weekly reading class there too. She drove past 5th and Madison on her way home. She always did, deliberately. The corner where Brandon had thrown coffee in her face, where she'd felt as low as a person could feel, where everything had changed. There was someone standing there now, holding a sign. A young man, maybe 30, looking lost and desperate in the way Mia recognized too well. She'd driven past him before, always meaning to stop but never quite doing it. Tonight she pulled over. She got out of her car and walked up to him. "Hi," she said gently. "What's your name?" The young man looked startled. "Tyler." "Hi, Tyler, I'm Mia." She pulled out a business card, her own now, from the Harrison Foundation Literacy Program. "I used to stand on this exact corner. Someone helped me and now I want to help you. Are you hungry? Can I buy you dinner?" Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "Really?" "Really," Mia said. "And while we eat, you can tell me your story, because I have a feeling it's worth hearing." They went to the same diner where Elijah had taken her 6 months ago. Mia ordered pancakes. It felt right, and listened as Tyler talked. He'd been in foster care, aged out of the system with no support. Tried to make it on his own, but without family or connections, he'd fallen through the cracks. He wasn't looking for a handout, just a chance, just someone to see him. "I know someone who can help," Mia said when he finished. "Someone who believes in second chances. Let me make a call." She pulled out her phone and texted Elijah. "Found someone who reminds me of me 6 months ago. Young man, aged out of foster care, needs housing and job training. Can the foundation help?" The response came back in seconds. "Absolutely. Send me his info. We'll get him set up this week." Mia looked up at Tyler. "How would you feel about meeting some people tomorrow who can help you get back on your feet? Housing, job training, medical care, the works." Tyler stared at her like she was speaking another language. "Why would you do this for me?" Mia reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Because someone did it for me, and because you deserve to be seen, to be helped, to have a chance. That's how we change the world, Tyler. One person, one moment, one act of kindness at a time." Across town, Brandon Voss was just finishing his 48th consecutive Saturday volunteer shift. It was no longer court-ordered, hadn't been for months, but he kept showing up anyway. The anger that used to live in his chest had been slowly replaced by something else. Not quite peace, but maybe the beginning of it. He'd been demoted at work, no longer a senior account manager, just a regular one, but he'd kept his job. He was grateful for that. The demotion had come with a pay cut, which meant downsizing his apartment and selling his luxury car. But somehow, he felt lighter without all that stuff weighing him down. His therapist said he was making real progress, said the work he was doing, the volunteering, the self-reflection, the amends he was slowly making, was genuine. Brandon wasn't sure yet. Still had bad days when the old contempt tried to creep back in. But he was trying, really trying. As he was leaving the shelter, Patricia called him over. "Brandon, got a minute?" Sure, he said. One of our regular volunteers is moving out of state. We need someone to take over the Saturday morning food prep shift. It's a bigger commitment. Have to be here at 6 a.m. to start cooking. Interested. Brandon thought about his Saturday mornings. Used to spend them sleeping off hangovers, scrolling social media, hitting the gym. Now he couldn't imagine spending them any other way. I'm in, he said. Patricia smiled. Good, you've come a long way, kid. I'm proud of you. Coming from her, that meant something. Thank you, Brandon said, for not giving up on me. We don't give up on people here, Patricia said. That's kind of the whole point. Elijah Harrison read both messages, from Mia about Tyler, from his foundation director about 3 other people who'd been successfully placed in jobs that month, and smiled. The model was working. They'd helped 47 people transition from homelessness to stable housing and employment in 6 months. 47 lives changed. 47 people who now had the chance to change others. It wasn't enough. There were still thousands on the streets. The problem was bigger than one foundation, one company, one billionaire could solve. But it was a start. And every single person they helped was someone's daughter, someone's son, someone who mattered. His assistant knocked on his door. Mr. Harrison, you have that interview in 5 minutes. The reporter from Forbes doing the follow-up story. Right, Elijah said. He'd agreed to the interview reluctantly. Didn't love the attention, but if it helped spread the model, helped inspire other companies to do similar work, it was worth it. The reporter was young, eager. She set up her recorder and opened her notebook. Mr. Harrison, 6 months ago you became a viral sensation for helping a homeless woman on the street. Since then, your foundation has expanded significantly. You've inspired similar programs in other cities and you've been called a hero by many. How does that feel? Elijah shook his head. I'm not a hero. Heroes are people like Mia Chen, who maintained her dignity and grace even when someone was actively trying to strip it away. Heroes are people like the volunteers who show up every week to serve food and offer kindness to people society has forgotten. I just have resources and decided to use them in a way that matters. But you didn't have to stop that day, the reporter pressed. You could have driven to your meeting. What made you get out of the car? Elijah was quiet for a moment, thinking. Honestly, I think I was tired of being complicit. Every day I drove past people suffering, and every day I told myself it wasn't my problem, that I donated to charity so I'd done my part. But that morning, watching Brandon Voss throw coffee in Mia's face, I realized I was just like him in a way. Not as overtly cruel, but just as dismissive. Just as willing to see people as problems instead of as people. He leaned forward. Here's what I want people to understand. This isn't about me being special or generous. This is about recognizing that we live in a society where a retired teacher with 37 years of service can end up homeless because of medical bills. That's not a personal failure. That's a system failure. And those of us with resources have a responsibility to fix the system, not just feel sorry for its victims. What would you say to other CEOs or wealthy individuals? The reporter asked. I'd say, use what you have to change what you can. You don't need to be a billionaire to make a difference. But if you are someone with significant resources, ask yourself what legacy you're building. Will people remember you for how much money you made or for how many lives you changed? Which matters more to you? The interview wrapped up and the reporter left. Elijah sat alone in his office for a moment, looking at the picture on his desk, the one from that morning 6 months ago. He picked up his phone and sent a text to Mia, proud of you for helping Tyler. This is exactly what Dorothy did for me, what I tried to do for you. The circle keeps growing. Her response came quickly. It's not a circle, it's a wave, and it's just getting started. Elijah smiled. She was right. It was a wave, started by Dorothy decades ago when she helped a desperate man outside a grocery store, continued by that man when he helped a teacher on a street corner, amplified by that teacher when she helped a young man who reminded her of herself, and spreading outward in ways none of them could fully measure. One person, one moment, one choice to see someone else's humanity. That's how everything changes. That's how the world gets better. Not through grand gestures or viral moments, though those can help, but through the quiet daily decision to stop, to see, to help, to believe that every person you pass has value, has a story, has dignity that can't be stolen. Mia Chen understood that now in a way she couldn't have 6 months ago. When you've been invisible, you never forget what it feels like to be seen, and you spend the rest of your life making sure others don't stay invisible either. Brandon Voss was learning it too, slowly, painfully. That strength isn't about standing above others. That success isn't about proving you're better than someone else. That real redemption comes from showing up, doing the work, becoming someone different than who you were. And Elijah Harrison, the billionaire CEO who'd gone viral for one moment of kindness, he carried the lesson with him every day. That wealth is meaningless if it doesn't serve life. That power is wasted if it doesn't lift others. That legacy isn't built in boardrooms but in the small moments when we choose compassion over convenience. The video had been viewed 500 million times across every platform, but the real impact wasn't in the views. It was in the thousands of people who'd stopped at their own corners, asked their own questions, extended their own hands. It was in the Tylers and Mias and Brandons whose lives had been changed by one person deciding to see them. That morning on 5th and Madison wasn't the end of anything. It was a beginning, a reminder that we're all one bad day, one medical crisis, one piece of bad luck away from needing help, and we're all one moment of courage away from being someone else's Dorothy. The question is simple: which person will we be? The one who throws coffee and walks away? Or the one who stops, kneels down in the dirt and says, "Tell me your story, let me see you, let me help"? Every single day, we get to choose. Choose wisely. Choose kindly. Choose to see. If this story touched your heart, if it changed how you see the world even a little bit, then I need you to take action right now. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss stories that matter. Hit that like button and make this video go viral. Let's get it to 1 billion views and start a global movement of kindness. And most importantly, comment below. Tell me, where are you watching from? What's one specific action you're going to take this week to help someone? Name it. Commit to it publicly. Let's hold each other accountable to being better humans, because stories like this only matter if they change us, so let them change you. Let this be the moment you decide to stop walking past, to stop looking away, to start seeing. The world is waiting for you to choose kindness, so choose it. Right now, today, every day. That's how we change everything. Together.